Welcome back to Super Sunday Matchday. Newcastle head to Stamford Bridge this afternoon to face Chelsea, whose manager Enzo Maresca has made some headlines after criticising the club's captain Reece James. This week, this is what Maresca said. "I spoke with him and I expected from him more in terms of leadership inside the changing room and for different kinds of things." So quite scathing comments then from Maresca, you'd have to say, Melissa. Why do you think he's done this so publicly?
Having spent time with Enzo Maresca, I have been a bit taken aback by how open and honest he is. Whereas some managers would absolutely not say such things in public. And there's been quite a few occasions now where when I was on the US tour with Chelsea, when he was talking about their high line and what was wrong with it, and the way he just completely dismantled the way the team was defending and how they'd been previously primed to do that and ill-equipped in terms of their conditioning. I was just like, wow, it's wonderful to have a manager be so open, but at times you're not used to it. And then it does come across as very blunt and brutal. Now, because he says he's had the conversation with Reece James already in a personal sense, I'm then wondering, has he had that conversation and still not seen a reaction yet? But I think the very best managers know which buttons to press for which players in order to get what they're seeking from them. Because not all players react to a public criticism or dressing down. Some do. Some would rather a quiet word. And I think if a manager is saying that you're not doing enough off the pitch, if you're not contributing on the pitch, surely then you have to be doing something off the pitch. And Maresca feels that he's not doing it. It feels uncomfortable to me to hear that about a player, because I think when you're saying somebody's had a bad game, that's different. That's a performance. When you're questioning somebody's attribute in general, leadership is a huge thing, especially for somebody who does have the captain's armband. It's a little bit more uncomfortable of a conversation. But the way I know Maresca is he won't hold anything back. He just says it as it is, and you have to deal with it.
Yes, the way he is. He's described James as a reserved guy, and he also goes on to say that they don't have any real leaders at the moment. Some are sort of making their steps towards it. Even Reece James, he says, is getting there. Does this sound, we've got to ask the question, he does have this big squad. Does it sound like he wants rid of Reece James? You have to speak.
If I speak, I'm in trouble.
I just think of any job. If you're watching this, whatever job you work at, if you were to get feedback, especially if it's negative, then you want it in private. You do not want it public. And I've seen lots of fans, which I can understand, who are supportive of the club and anything that the club do and anything that Maresca does, who say, look, they're words of encouragement. They want Reece James to get better. Reece James is a world-class right-back. He's a world-class defender. And we've seen with his performances that on his days he is one of the best in Europe. Now, I read this as Reece James's future being in doubt. Maresca clearly doesn't fancy him. He's got other options in that position, because I cannot think of an elite manager who would describe his character or characterise the leadership qualities of their captain in this way. And I was trying before the match, I was trying yesterday when I first saw these quotes. What other manager has done that? And I can't think of any. And I'm sure people will maybe email in or text or tweet in and suggest cases where that would happened, but I would suggest that they would be exceptions. I'll just say this, sometimes, and I've been a journalist for 25 years, been a journalist for a long, long time, and what we do in football sometimes is ascribe lots of different characteristics to managers. Anything they say is right, nothing they say can be wrong. I've said before on this show, his decision to give the captaincy to Enzo Fernandez was wrong. It sent out the wrong message for the football club. I don't care what Fernandes has done since then. You cannot conduct yourself in the way that Fernandes did on that bus in the summer and suggest that you are a leader of any group of people. Suggest that you, in a football context, that you should be the person who is fronting your club. For him to turn around and then say to Reece James, you're the wrong kind of captain, I disagree, and I'm allowed to disagree. I think he's wrong to do it, and I do not think people should buy into it or believe that because he's made that assessment, he is right. To me, I have to say he's wrong to do it. I feel a lot of sympathy for Reece James because if I were reading those comments, to me, as a player, you know, Reece James has had injuries. He's been through a tough time.
12, 18 months.
Exactly.
Been out,
He's come through the academy. He's one of Chelsea's own. Chelsea fans
all the upheaval
love
at the club that he's navigated and still been somebody that they can rely on and turn to and a reference point. And for me, it's really difficult because I know a lot of players personally, and when they talk about how unlike themselves they feel when they're battling injury, because ultimately this one thing that they've sacrificed their lives for, that they've geared everything towards, you know, the way they live, their nutrition, the decisions they have to make, the seeding of family time, all that for this one thing, and they are denied the opportunity to do it through injury. And then it's not just when you get one injury that's bad, but when it's recurring and you just can't get over them, and mentally that takes such a massive toll on you. And I know that struggle for players, so I feel I don't like it when players are injured and they're getting grief, whether that be on social media or in stadiums or anywhere, because ultimately they don't want to be injured.
And grief is the right word, because what he's done with these comments about Reece James, and he didn't just say the first bit, he started with it and he elaborated on what he's done is open up a conversation around Reece James. He's given rise to criticism that he will now have from pundits, from fans, from people outside of the dressing room. You could have all of those assessments of Reece James. And listen, I'm a journalist, we're journalists, we are never going to, we are all about people speaking. That's what we want. We are in the information business, so let's not kid ourselves. But I just look at this and I think that what he's done is given rise to a conversation around a terrific player that is going to be negative. And that is going to add to all of those emotional insecurities that Reece James may well have had. Do you trust your body? Do you think you'll be able to do what you could do before you had your big injury? How is that support? How is that geeing up a player? I just don't see it. And I know we should sit here and say that everything they say is right, but it's not the case. I think, and I was reading the comments of William Gallas today, and he was saying they might aspire to be in the top four, but they can't do it defending the way that they have done. I cannot see that you would help that situation by criticising your captain rather than having words of support in public and maybe saying that kind of thing in private.
You mentioned the fact that you were with Maresca during that tour, so you got very close in terms of what you could ask him, didn't you? I mean, there was this narrative, wasn't there, that all these players are on long-term contracts and perhaps that this will make them relax a little bit, you know, take their foot off the gas. Do you think this is any way connected to that and saying, actually, look, no one's safe. This is the captain I'm talking about. So hang on, guys, you all need to raise your game, because he does mention a few other players as well in that dialogue and what he's speaking about. So do you think this is kind of like giving them all a bit of a G-up?
There are people at Chelsea, and there is a conversation actually with sporting directors of other clubs who say Chelsea have actually done phenomenally to get somebody like Maresca, who's so strong-headed, strong-willed, has authority, commands not just the dressing room, but the ownership, the recruitment teams. Everybody's pretty much following his path, which has been quite hard to do at Chelsea, who have been so muddled. So
he has been a fantastic coach. Yeah. There's no doubt whatsoever about that.
Yeah. Then the other side of that, though, is, you know, he says he wants more from Reece James away from the pitch while he's injured. And I would just say it's so difficult for a player to mentally give when they are feeling so down.